Welcome to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. And I am your host, Nora Muhammad. It is always a privilege and a pleasure to be with you each week talking about issues that are relevant to our community, talking about ways that we can improve the outcomes to our community. And I really appreciate having this platform, having a podcast, and having technology so that we can amplify necessary messages, relevant messages, and so that everybody has the opportunity to have a voice. It can be difficult for those who don't have corporate backing, who don't have political affiliation, but have a positive message. It could be difficult, except we have this technology where uh, many people who are producing great content, but don't have the big dollars behind them, or the corporate sponsors can go ahead and produce content that they love and that others enjoy, in spite of all of that. So I'm very grateful for this platform that I have. I'm grateful to you who is just a loyal, dedicated audience. Those who listen to the Nora Speaks podcast are people who are active and involved and have the heart and the will to serve others. And so I am so grateful for you. And in this episode, I want to talk about what it takes to be a leader. Initially, and actually, I was going to title this episode and have a conversation about armchair leadership. And you may say, well, what do you mean by that? And anyone who understands the sports analogy of a Monday morning quarterback or armchair coach or armchair quarterback, that is someone who has an opinion, maybe ridicule of the game, of what's happening on the field, or what's happening, on the court, or what's happening on the baseball diamond. But that person is not involved in the game and has not been involved in the game, but is full of opinions and is full of insight and wants everybody to listen to what he or she has to say. And the same happens with leadership. There are those who have not sacrificed, have not been involved, don't know the lay of the land, don't know the players, but, um, they sit in their homes and they talk about everything that they think is the solution to what's happening in the community, what's happening in the broader society, what's happening in the country, but are not involved in any kind of organization or program that is aiming to fix what they identify as wrong. But instead of having an episode about armchair leadership, and that may come in a later time, I thought that in this time it may be more productive to have a conversation about those who are seeking to be a leader, seeking position in a leadership capacity, um, to share 7 questions that you should ask yourself. And I love the intent to be active. I love the will to produce positive change in your community, in your city, in your state, and certainly in this nation. I think that it is good and it is beneficial to participate in the process that can foster change and outcomes that are beneficial to those who are around us, to our families, to our neighbors. However, I find and I observe that too few people are asking themselves the critical questions or having those critical qualifications before they enter into some leadership capacity. And I think that this conversation is timely because we are in an election year. It is 2020. This nation is going to decide who's going to be the next president of the United States. But There's also local elections that may be happening. There are maybe school board elections, city council, your county commissioner or freeholder, um, s- um, PTA presidents, or just in general. There are so many people on social media who want to teach how to do this or teach how to do that, or be a guide and be a lead for people. But I challenge you to ask yourself 7 questions. Now, I'll begin by saying that leadership isn't something that we should be seeking because we want personal validation, or because we want to feel good about ourselves, or um, because this would be a good a point or notation to put on a resume. Real leaders are not always loved by the people that they serve, and real leadership takes real work. So before you or I should enter into any leadership capacity, I believe that we should ask ourselves these 7 questions: who, what, where, when, why, how, and how much. And I'm going to break each of these down. And if you're someone who is interested in some leadership capacity, if it's in your organization, if it's in your school, if it's in your student government, ask yourself these questions. And those whom are in your circle that are also thinking about stepping out into leadership, encourage them to listen to this and also ask themselves these questions. So who? Let's start with that. Well, who are you? Who are you, and who do you want to lead? And who is your leader? Who has mentored you? There are so many young folks that want to step up and step out and try their hand at leadership, and that's good. We need our young people active. We need them involved. We know that we need them to know what the issues are. But we also know that in order to be a good general, then we also need to be a good soldier, right? So even you think about the military, those who are in those roles of captain and generals, at some point they were a foot soldier. They were in the rank and file. And we too, as we are coming up the ranks and deciding that this is our calling to serve, to lead others, then it is important that at some point we too have been led. It is important that we have been mentored. To come in as someone, fresh off the boat, so to speak, into a leadership capacity, well, you need to know the terrain. You need to know the players. You need to know the issues. And it is so helpful to have someone who has done it before you, who is already in that arena, to give guidance, to give advice, to be your mentor, to be your sponsor, so that you're not coming in and you're so uninformed because you don't have someone who you can emulate or who you may be modeling after. So as you're coming into leadership, do a gut check. Who are you? Um, and the people that you want to serve, are you the one that is best for them? And are they those who may be best for you to stand in front of? The next question that you should ask yourself is, what? What are your qualifications? What have you done that validates your desire to lead people? What have you done? What have you achieved? What differences have you made that will qualify you to step into a broader leadership capacity? And I'm not talking about the followers that you have on social media. Followers on social media does not qualify any of us for leadership, or viewers of your Facebook or YouTube video does not qualify you for leadership. What's going to qualify you for leadership is not just what you may know in your head, what you may have read, the knowledge that you've ascertained, but also what you have accomplished, what you have done. Those whom you are looking to follow you in your leadership, those who you're looking to give guidance to, should be able to check your body of work, should be able to check your own personal history to determine if you are the one who is qualified, who is best qualified to be in front of the people. Um, so, for example, if you're someone who wants to lead someone in education, it is useful that you've been an educator. It's useful that you've made some kind of impact or inroads or positive outcomes that you have that others can say, yes, this person has done this. So what have you done that has qualified you to even have the desire to be a leader in front of someone? And I would just make this note here that it is not what you have to say that qualifies you, but it's what you can do based on what you have done, right? And sure, you want people to believe in what you say that you think is good for them. You want them to believe in what you have in your mind that is good for them and good for you. But also, have you produced any of what you say that you believe? Have you modeled that in any sort of way? So I will share this story. I share this story and we talk about it. Friends of mine, I was at a meeting and there was an issue that happened. It was actually a tragedy that happened to a young person in the city of Camden, where I live. Someone was, unfortunately, a young man lost his life in a shooting. And at the meeting, it was a community meeting, and a young man came to the podium, and this person talked about this plan that he had. And if they had only listened to his plan, then this tragedy could have been averted. And so as I'm listening and as I'm watching this person talk about the plan that they have, I thought, well, why didn't you just activate your plan? Why didn't you just implement what you thought was appropriate so that we could avoid these awful fatalities and these awful outcomes? Why didn't you implement a plan that you say is necessary and appropriate, and that there's an urgent need for it? And what it appears to be the case is that we may have a plan in our minds, but we have not, or we may have written that out on paper, but we have not taken any kind of action on the plan, and we're waiting for somebody to invest in our plan. We're waiting for somebody to invest in our ideas. But in the meantime, we're just sitting talking about this great idea that we have. And I, would submit that perhaps if this young man had implemented the plan, and those who are responsible, who are in charge of government or public safety, if they would have seen that this plan is good, then I'm sure that that plan would have gotten the backing that was necessary. But even if not, even if no one else recognized the benefits that this plan was making in the community, brother, you have a plan. You don't need somebody to say, go and do what you think is necessary to keep people safe. Why are you just sitting on it? So if we have great ideas, then we should show some ability to activate those ideas, to engage those ideas, to implement those ideas. And if we don't have that track record, then it is unreasonable to ask or have the expectation that others would follow behind a plan that we have only created in our minds or on paper alone. So what is qualifying a desire for leadership in you? And the next question that you should ask yourself is, where have you been? Where are you going? And where are you leading others? Where do you want to lead the people to? What is your ultimate destination for them? I think that this is something that many may not even think about. We want to be in the position or sit in the seat of leadership, but where? are we bringing people to? What is the your planned objective for these people? Is it just so that they can exalt you, or so that you can be exalted, or be self-exalted? Do you have a goal or a destination for the people that you're leading? And we can even break this down in families. If you're a parent and you're raising children, we should have a destination. We should have an objective. What is the intended outcome for this child or for this family? What are we doing all of this for? And so, as if we are in corporate leadership, if we are in religious leadership, if we are in political leadership, what is the destination? Where are you leading the people to? And if they ask you this, what is your plan? Where are you leading us to? What are your outcomes that you want to achieve? You should be able to answer these questions. These are just very, very basic questions. And if you can't answer these questions when you ask yourself, then you can't answer them when others ask you. And so maybe you should sit and think about what your objectives are, what the destination is for you and for the people that you want to guide. So, another question, the fourth question that you should ask yourself if you want to be a leader. And that question is, when do you want to serve? And what do you mean, Nora, when do I want to serve? Meaning, are you a 9 to 5 leader? Are you a 5 to 10 p.m. leader? When is your service going to be available for people that you want to be responsible for? And it's important because some of us who are 9 to 5 leaders, the people are not getting from you what they should, and they're not, the outcomes are going to, you're not going to be able to produce the outcomes if you have a hard start and a hard stop to your leadership. Now, this isn't to say that people should be knocking on your door at 12 p.m., 12 a.m. Certainly, we have boundaries. But what I'm saying is, think about the expectation that would be on you and of your time when you are in a leadership capacity. Some people lead when it's convenient. Are you willing to lead and be a leader and serve others when it is not convenient to you? Are you willing to be a leader when the cameras are not rolling, when the microphones are not in your face, when your supporters are not numerous? Or are you waiting for the big crowd and then you want to jump up and be a jack-in-a-box leader? Are you willing to lead and to serve people? Because that's what leaders are, they're servants. Are you willing to lead and serve people when your allies are not present? So really think about the expectations that would be on your time if you want to be an effective leader. And someone who can only lead during business hours, you have to understand that people have needs 24/7, that people are going to need to be served at various times in various ways, and that you have to be flexible and have a lifestyle that can accommodate the needs of the people if you're serving them in a leadership capacity. Now, the fifth question is why? Why do you want to be a leader? Why you? Why do you want to lead? What is your motivation, right? You've heard people say, well, what is your why? Is it ego? Is it vanity? Do you want to lead because you want to make a difference? And what is the difference that you want to make? You have to know what your why is. When others challenge you on that, well, why you? Right? And I've heard people say, oh, well, why not me? No, why, why you? What is it about you that others should put their faith in, their hope in, their optimism in, and even sacrifice their time to support you in your bid for leadership or to support you in your role of leadership? Because if you're going to lead, then you're going to require something of others. You're going to have an expectation of them as they support you. And they should be able to ask, well, why you? And you should be able to give them an answer that's going to be suitable. So if you want to be in leadership just because you want to make a difference, well, that's a nice start. But what qualifies you to be the one to make a difference, right? And so maybe start out as a volunteer. If you don't have those qualifications, if you have to learn the lay of the land, if you have to learn the players and the roles and the language, because there's a culture to every arena of leadership. There's a culture that goes with that. And so you have to know that culture. You have to understand it, and they have to see you, those whom you want support from, they have to have seen you actually involved, actually being engaged, actually giving of your time when you didn't have a title. So that now that you're asking for a title, you're seeking a title, that they can be comfortable and be confident and make a wise choice in you. So if you are wanting to lead, ask why you. And so also, is the why that you're hungry? Is the why that you're seeking personal gain? Now, this is very, very important. There are so many leaders, Black people who have been in some political office, some kind of leadership capacity, corporate, law enforcement. And if we are hungry, and what do I mean by hungry? Needing. If you are depending on people for your income, if you're depending on people for your comfort in life, then you will be vulnerable. And, I'm not going to mention their names, but there are so many who have seen or met with disgrace because they were interested in not just the access. They weren't just interested in the title or the position of leadership, but they were also interested in what others would give them. And we have some who are serving time, who have served time, because don't think that you are going to operate in some capacity of leadership and you're supposed to be responsible for the people, and the bribe that you're taking, the favors that you're doing, don't think that's not going to get out. Oh, it's getting out. It may not get out today or tomorrow, but, we have intelligence in this country that doesn't have to use the intelligence that they have right away. And so they may have cases that they're building on people who have engaged in some kind of corruption. So if your why is that you're hungry, I encourage you to think about doing something else. If your why is because you want to be in the position to do favors for others, I would encourage you to think about doing something else. It takes great character to lead. It takes great sacrifice, dedication. It takes honesty. And we have to be willing to tell the truth regardless of the ramifications. We have to be willing to tell the truth regardless of the negative outcomes that could have for us personally. We have to tell the truth even if it testifies against us. We have to tell the truth even when our friends may be compromised by the truth. We have to always be willing to tell the truth. And those of us who are easily manipulated because they're hungry, because they're seeking some kind of creature comfort from the position and the role that they're serving in, that's just not going to work. And the people don't need that. They don't need you if you're going to operate in that kind of capacity. Our people are suffering and are in need of qualified, sincere, committed, and dedicated leadership. So we have the who, what, where, when, why. Now let's talk about the how. How will you lead others? And remember, when we're talking about leadership, we're talking about service. So when I say lead, you can use the same, you can take out lead and use the word service. So how will you lead others? What's your influence? What's your style of leadership? What is your leadership model? And this is important to ask or to really consider, because there's so many styles to leadership. And I've seen some styles work and I've seen some styles fail, right? So you have to know what is your style of leadership, and that could align with your personality. That could align with your general disposition, but think about what your leadership style is going to look like, and do research and look and observe those around you. And that's why it's so important when I talked about what are your qualifications, and when I talked about, who are you, who are you to lead, and who has led you. Because when we kind of come up through the ranks, or when we've been exposed to mentors who've been in leadership capacities, then we've studied and observed other leaders and their style, and we get to know what works for people and what does not work for people. So it's important to even consider this. How will you lead others? What is going to be your leadership style? And the last question that you should ask yourself, and that others should be asking of you if you're interested in leading them, in guiding them, standing in front of them. And that last question is how much? How much are we willing to sacrifice? How much are we willing to endure? How much are we willing to give? How much can we give until we tap out, until we quit our post, until we walk away because the load of leadership is just so heavy? So how much can you endure? How much ridicule? How much scorn? Because remember, a good leader is not always loved by the person that they're leading. And just going back to the parent analogy, when you told your children no, were they happy with you? I know my children were not always happy with me when I told them no, when I couldn't give them everything that they wanted when they wanted it. And the same thing with leadership. We cannot be everything to everybody. At some point, we are going to have to make a decision that others will not like in the position of leadership. We are not always going to make people happy. And that is not the job of leadership, to make people happy. The job of leadership is to guide people to a destination that is good for them, that is aligned with the corporation, that is aligned with the values of the organization. So being in leadership is going to require so much. So you have to ask yourself, how much do you have to give? How much are you willing to give? How much are you willing to sacrifice? Your time, your resources, your energy. How much are you willing to give to the people that you say you want to serve and that you are willing to stand in front of, knowing that it is not always going to be an easy ride, knowing that 75% of the time it may not be an easy ride, knowing that you are not going to have instant victories, or that you can't engage in instant gratification, knowing that the eventual goal and the good that goal brings has to exceed anything that you can have right away. So if you are interested in being a leader and standing in front of the people and having others depend on you, this is not an ego-centered work. If you have ego and vanity as the base of the leadership that you want to engage in, it's not going to work, and the people don't need you. But if you have sincerity, you have dedication, if you've been qualified, if you've been trained, then when you're vetted for leadership, then our people can look to you and say, well, I don't always like everything, but I know that this person is honest. I might not agree on everything, but I know that this person has the best in mind for our people. I know that this person is qualified. I know that this person has put in time. I know that this person was working in the dark when nobody saw him or her. I know that this person is working even when the cameras aren't here. So the people have to be able to depend on you. The people have to have the right to ask you these questions. And so before they ask you, then I would encourage you to ask yourself these questions. Again, who, what, where, when, why, how, and how much. So I hope that this podcast and these tips that I'm sharing with you will be beneficial to you. I would encourage you to really think about it. Even those who are already operating in a leadership capacity, do a gut check. Ask yourself these 7 questions and share this with others whom you may have friendships and affiliations with in leadership. We need qualified men and women to stand in front of us, and not just stand in front of us, but to speak on behalf of us. And if you can't answer these questions, you can't speak on behalf of the people. You can't be responsible for the people. The people need leadership that's steady, that's qualified, that's motivated to serve, because the people need service and because they're willing to serve, not because they're interested in personal gain or personal satisfaction, that they're interested in the satisfaction of the masses and not interested in just an individualistic personal satisfaction. Leadership is a big, big role, and our people need too much to be handicapped by someone standing in front of us that just is not ready to serve. I want to thank you for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. I'm interested in your feedback, your comments, your questions. You can email me at info@noraspeaks.com. Again, that's info@noraspeaks.com. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and until next week, stay in peace. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, norahmuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@noraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.